Hi, everybody. It's RPG Grandma. If you saw my cell phone, you know what just happened at the very start of the video, which we'll edit out. I wanted to talk today a little bit off the cuff about death and dying in games like D&D. Controversial subject, apparently, still. 5e, it's like not all 5e games. I want to clarify that. You can totally die if I do 5e games. I know other game masters that are on the net and stuff. They will totally kill you if they're playing 5e and you do something stupid with your player character. Some have house rules that make it harder. But I do know that there's that controversy. And honestly, so I've played D&D a long time. And it started out as a kid. I think there's always been like a tug of war between the player's favorite character just lost too many hit points. They're technically dead from the GM side. Or, oh my gosh, my PC just died and it was my favorite character of all time from the player's side. I mean, I understand that tug for something to happen, for the intervention, the fudging of the dice roll behind the screen that nobody can see. Because, when I was younger, I fudged a few dice rolls in favor of the players. I won't lie. But as I played more and more, as a player and as a DM, role-playing games, not just D&D, I walked away with the epiphany that it's better to let them die. And as a referee, as an umpire of the game. And that sounds harsh and that sounds mean, especially with the amount of time that 5e encourages people to make backgrounds, and I don't see that improving with 6e or whatever WotC's calling it, the new system. So I understand the tug in that direction. Just because you like the character or the players into the character. I also understand that it can sometimes create problems, viability of the group in the dungeon or the adventure. If you've got too tight of a storyline, it could create problems. So I do get the argument from the other side. On the other hand, I have learned that those aren't good arguments. And you're actually denying yourself and your players some cool possibilities, which is what I want to talk about. Not so much is it wrong or bad, or are the OSR people, the old school people, those people who are still playing 1E and basic, they're just not with the times and they're not hip and and they're just mean, no. Or from their perspective, they're just like a bunch of hippies and they just want to do play drama acting. And I'm not saying that, you can't find some people in those extremes, but most people aren't quite in those severe extremes. But I want to talk about how you can turn death into an opportunity. So, first of all, for the storytelling people, the people who are like, D&D is storytelling. Which, when I was a kid, it was never storytelling. It was a game. So it's been like me wrapping my head around like where people are coming from. Because I'm still pretty much just a game, people. Yeah, there's a story that gets told with it, but it's still a game. The story happens because of the game, not the other way around. So, from a storytelling perspective, death is a powerful, dramatic thing. Why would you cut it out? Killing off main characters in a movie, in a TV show, in the comic books, in real literature, is supposed to be impactful. It is good storytelling. Now, the DM shouldn't be like trying to kill everybody all the time unless that is what you all signed up for. Like, I have played those games where we all know we make like 6 characters and each, and we knew we were going to go die. The goal was to get deeper into that adventure each time. And we weren't the only party doing it. There was other people playing. And it would be like, you go to school at lunch, you go, hey, did you guys, it's our weekend off, and I know that you went through this. How far did you get before you all died horribly, right? We did that, but we knew what we were getting into. So we weren't like invested in the characters. It was more like, can Fred the 400th get one room further? And that was before video games, really. Pong was it. When Atari came out, that was huge. But I remember when somebody got Pong on the street. That was like awesome. If you guys don't know what Pong is, go look it up and realize that was the equivalent of the newest, coolest video game you can get for you today. Back then, that was awesome. So I want a Pong game. Darn it. I can't play Pong. Anyway, so that's what I'm getting at. We knew what we were in for. Okay? So when you know what you're in for, death's easier to take. Like if you're playing like Call of Cthulhu, which pretty much you're all going to die horribly or go insane. But it's the fun of everything that happens. Or maybe you become a cult member, But it's not going to end well for you or your character or the guy's character next to you. So how do you turn death into an opportunity? There's different ways. Okay? But just because the character died or all the characters died, total party kill, doesn't mean it's the total end. It can be. I mean, if you've got somebody who just like, oh, that's it, we're going to throw them in the trash can. I mean, people do that. Put them in the paper shredder, Hit the delete button if you got it on the computer. But I suggest the following. First of all, if a character dies, hand the dead character over to the dungeon master, the referee, the umpire. It doesn't matter how they died. Just do it. Because they might have come up with a cool idea and your character will live again. Maybe it'll be the freaky double universe, like out of Star Trek, or, something like that. But your character could, in fact, live again. Evil clone, transporter accident, Star Trek. Good examples of should have died but didn't. Did die but came back as an alien or something. So just because they die doesn't mean they can't come back as a non-player character. Number one. So I want that just to percolate in the head. But let's talk about Bob the Fighter. Bob the Fighter has taken one too many hit point damage. And he is down for the count. He is at a negative. You know that as the DM. Okay. Now, it depends on how you do your mechanics of the game. It depends on if you're more narrating it versus you take 5, you take 6, or somewhere in between. But Bob's dead. All right. Now, whether everybody else and whether the player Bob knows that Bob's dead, that's another issue. So I personally would encourage the rest of the play group to try to do things to save their buddies. And narrate things in such a way that they don't know just because they saw Bob go down, get shot, get hit with a battle axe, whatever. Bob's down, that they don't know for sure. So as soon as combat's over, somebody's going to go running. Be all medic, right? We gotta save Bob, right? We literally scream medic in our last D&D sessions. or old school essential, even though we're fantasy, It's the terminology, everybody. We'll have to work on saying healer, but everybody's like, medic. Too many police, EMTs, and corpsmen and stuff at the table, military. But you want them to try. It's good drama, if nothing else. Encourage everybody to try to save their friends, even if they can't. So you have the drama. Now, everybody knows Bob isn't coming back, including the person who's playing Bob. All right? So Bob's dead. All right. Next is important. The death scene. So first of all, you should have let Bob, you should have described what's happening to Bob, and what Bob was, in a way that was epic, because you knew he was going down. So it's like, and the orc with the battle axe, hits Bob, but Bob takes a final dramatic whatever. Let Bob do something. Let Bob have a death move. He doesn't have to kill the orc, but let Bob do one cool thing in that death moment, because it's good drama. All right? Just you do it for Bob, okay? When you're describing that scene. And then Bob is down and he's gasping, okay? Now, when the combat's over, then his little friends can run over and try to save Bob, all right? Now, when they know Bob's dead, everybody knows Bob's dead, then you start with what Bob sees. Now, this is a cool little trick. We've got in D&D and other role-playing games some form of mythology, legends, and afterlife. Sometimes they're based on real religions, ancient religions and so forth, or actually modern-day ones. And then sometimes they're completely fantasy, as much as they can be, because we're all humans. So certain archetypes are going to be recreated. Let's just be honest. So in your setting, think about what your setting is. What kind of deities do the people normally worship? Maybe you're a group of monsters. What do they normally worship? What does that look like? Before you get to this death thing, have these ideas in your head. Cruise the internet for cool looking pictures that fit with the idea. Watch some shows. I watched one and I can't remember the name of it, but we'll get to it in a second. It's really cool, but it was Egyptian motif, the afterlife. Okay. So that stuff's out there. So Bob could see. Bob, this is what you see. Now, grant you, the rest of the players aren't seeing this, but they're going to be like, what? Something's going on? We're going to listen, right? And this is a case where you want everybody to hear this, because it's going to change how they think about death in the game. The dungeon disappears. And you're on a plane. Lightning and storm clouds. The lightning strikes the ground, and then right where the lightning strikes the ground, a huge, giant black warhorse is rearing up, and on it sits the Grim Reaper in his black cloak and his skeleton face, holding the scythe. And it swings at you. And the sky or the ground, depending on where Bob's going, right, opens up this tunnel, and you lift off and away. That's a cool death scene, and if you got some little special effects, make that lightning thunder sound. Or maybe Bob is really Eric the Viking. Okay, so the dungeon disappears. You're on a plain field of grass in the sky, and swooping in, is this magnificent winged horse, and a beautiful Valkyrie in her shining armor is on the horse, and you lift your hand up, and she lifts down to you and grabs you and swoops you up onto her flying mount, and just wings whoosh, get the arm movements in there, whoosh it, and you look up and you can see the halls of the gods. Bob, that is what you see. Eric the Viking, that is what you see. Maybe you were Billy the Thief, but you were Norse. And you tried to run away from the battle, and you got shot in the back. You stand before the gates of hell, the hall of hell, in the frozen wastelands, and the bone hall is before you, and hell's guardian dog is there. And her guards, the doors open, and her guards are thrusting you into her hall. And you just cut it. Fades to black. Now, you've established two things with those death scenes. One, that your characters go somewhere to the players. And two, death might not be final. Oh, another good one, and this is one for parties that like to loot the bodies. Make sure they loot the body. Make sure they have moved on to another dungeon. Like they've looted the body, they've walked away. They've said that's what they're going to do. The other players. Do not let them go, oh, we just had an afterthought after you described this scene. All right? Because this then gives consequences to what you do to your fallen comrades. For every referee out there who's thought about this. All right, so Bob is dead. And let's say in your setting it's more like a Greco-Roman afterworld. All right. Again, Bob, this is what you see. You're suddenly standing on the edge of a riverbank. Around you are blind, deaf sort of... They were once human. You can tell that, but they're just roaming around. And you're on the dock for where the ferry is. And there's a ferryman. And he's got his hand out. And on the other side of the riverbank, you can see it's beautiful. Your side is miserable. The other side's beautiful. Really describe it, make it good. The important thing here is, though, the ferryman's got his hand out for that money, that they used to put in the graves, so that you could pay the ferryman. They put it sometimes in the mouth, sometimes over the eyes, whatever, but the coin folklore. Your buddies in the party, they looted your body and took all your coins. And they didn't put a coin in your mouth. They didn't put coins over your eyes. They didn't go, oh, he got eaten, we killed the monster, we should put a coin with the monster, down the monster's throat so he gets it. Whatever. They didn't do that. No, you can't pay the ferryman. The ferryman will not take you over to the pretty place you're supposed to go. And the ferryman tells you, until someone pays your fare, you are doomed to be on this side of the bank, doomed to haunt the living. So, consequences. Consequences for the party, consequences for whoever is, comes back down in that dungeon. Your character gets to become an unhappy ghost. It would be best if that ghost gets to follow the party and do stuff randomly until they take care of a proper burial for their fallen friend Bob. It will add a new aspect to the game. All right. So that's my first thought on not fearing the Reaper. Okay, now the Egyptian one was the Egyptian boat of the dead, and I forget what everybody had to do, but basically they died and they ended up on the barge. And it was a really cool barge, so you describe a really cool Egyptian barge. And it had the hippo goddess. She was at the tiller. The hippo goddess was involved somehow in the storyline. And she pops in and out, trying to help everybody so that they can save the universe from destruction, from Set, I think it is. But they're on their way to the afterworld to get their hearts weighed, all that stuff gets brought in. So when you have a total party kill, you can do that cool stuff. You can take the whole party on a mythological journey and give them a mythological quest, which is cool. More modernly, you might want to watch movies like R.I.P.D. or The Crow. Remember The Crow? He was dead. I think it's High Plane Drifter. Our hero in that is implied to be dead. There are so many. Dead Like Me, where you become a Reaper. God, there's comedies like Ghosts TV show. Even things where people become vampires, like, and then they want to be human again. There's so much you can do. So this is my first video on what to do about death and dying. But I have a lot of hook ideas about what to do when characters get killed or whole parties get killed, and then how to bring them back for one last hurrah. Also, that's another thing. So you got to start playing another character. But as a DM, you could give that character that died the last hurrah, the last huzzah in the final battle of the adventure by allowing them to come back when somebody fumbles in the final battle and change the outcome. Like in that cool scene in Conan the Barbarian with, where Valeria saves Conan and says, "What, do you want to live forever?" So think about that. It also suddenly makes things like funerals more relevant. What happens to the body? Oh, like Heaven Can Wait, where the guy's body's been cremated. So he has to go into, and there's been a mistake. So he gets sent back down. He wasn't supposed to get reaped. I mean, you could do that. And it could be hilarious because now you're in the body of a baker's wife. And you're supposed to be out questing to save the universe. And everybody thinks you're a baker's wife when you're a third-level fighter. Or you're a cleric. Or suddenly you're not who you were. Because the baker's wife actually had a heart attack. And the divine beings just, oh, nope. We made him a boo-boo. Now you're the baker's wife. There we go. We'll take her soul and that could be hilarious and fun. Picard, Q in the second episode, everyone dies, but then he sends them to the alternate universe where it's really messed up, and then they have to go back in time along with their nemesis, the Borg Queen, and save the universe. You could do the same thing. Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure, go to hell. You have so many options. They could be risen from the dead, and they're all skeleton men, which this one got a high. I posted a lot of these on Twitter. That one, a lot of people liked. Like, oh my God, they all come back as skeleton men on a mission to save the day. After they've, they're skeleton dudes. And that idea is it's just awesome. You can resurrect an individual that way, or you can resurrect everybody that way. But it also allows for them to be skeleton people. They've been decomposing for a while. So it allows you to change the setting as the dungeon master. It allows you to fast forward the setting. Everybody comes up to do this big skeleton adventure where they're the skeleton men, which then opens up a whole lot of other possibilities for stuff that they have to deal with as skeleton men, doing their different things. Makes it totally different. Or you could allow, as a DM, somebody got zombified, let's say, to retain enough of themselves that the zombification doesn't make them want to kill their living friends. So they're helping their living friends. I believe there was a movie about that. There's like a lot of possibilities. And like I said, if you hold on to the dead characters, they can come back as evil NPCs. You can have the player fight his previous character who is now undead. They can go back as vampires. There are in Ardoon, there is actually a player character. Excuse me. There's actually a player character class for ghosts. It's in one of the Dragon Tree products, and other people have done this. I pointed that out, and people have come back and said, "Yeah, I've got a whole ghost character going. It's cool." And that's the other thing. If you keep playing the undead character, you can actually come up with a new class. The class of skeleton men, a class for ghosts, a class for zombies. You can run with your creativity. And sure, it's going to be wacky. So the party is now policing the afterlife, making sure people's souls are getting to the right place. And the ones that are trying to escape, they're out there arresting them or putting them down, so that the rest of the universe runs the way it's supposed to. You can Beetlejuice it, you can do the waiting room, even in fantasy, You wake up and you've got a clay marker in your hand with what appears to be numbers, and you're in a room full of scribes, and there's a number floating over each scribe's head, and it doesn't match yours. There's a room full of people waiting. One guy has an arrow through his head, and he's holding an apple. Another guy, describe all the dead people in the room. And describe, what the dead character looks like when they're clearly in the waiting room, like in Beetlejuice. You can have some fun with this. You really can. And it could make your universe more vibrant, because now the world of demons and angels and gods and saints and semi-divine creatures and myths and legends, there's a whole nother layer that's there to be explored. Eric the Viking, they didn't technically die in that, but they went up to Valhalla, and that whole experience, the prime material is the profane world. You can explore the sacred world, the dream world. There's lots of different names for this, the mythological scape. That is part of your fantasy role-playing game universe. And yeah, the characters are dead, and they're going to stay dead, or unless, of course, they made a deal with the devil that they'll get their bodies back and they'll get to live again. That can happen. But the point that I'm making is the death scenes can be massively inspiring. They can have consequences. Like I said, looting the body can have some consequences, where now Bob gets to haunt everybody because they didn't pay his fee that they knew he'd have to cross the River Styx, for example. And you can have a lot of fun with it, and depending on the setting. I mean, you can have St. Christopher pull up in a taxi cab, So I just want you guys to, and I'm not trying to, upsets you if you're Catholic. It's just, I'm trying to put ideas out there to make you rethink the afterlife, rethink death in D&D or any game, that it doesn't have to be just a mechanical thing. It can be dramatic. It can open doors to other quests and adventures. Also, you can get cloned. You can get resurrected, either divinely, in which you got all your pieces and parts look great, but maybe take constitution hits each time, or whatever the game mechanic is for the game you're playing, or resurrection in your game. Pretty much you got to find somebody who makes Frankenstein's monsters and hope that works. And you ain't gonna be right. You could have the player come back as a brain in a jar, an android, right? A cyborg. I mean, all those things are possible. So that's why I'm putting it out there, is rethink death and dying in your game. And of course, sometimes characters just need to die. They just need to. You're bored. The players are bored with it. They're not working in the game well. If nothing else, this is the thing I don't understand, is people. The game has time too. And at some point, your character is going to age out. They're going to. Either because you all move on to a different game, and it goes on a shelf, and you never play that character again. I've got those. Or because your character actually got hecka old in the game for real, that's continuously running, and they're going to die at 100. Do you want your character to have a straw death, or do you want your character to have a heroic ghoul death? So players, game masters, rethink death and dying. Think how you can turn something turn it into something cool. Total party kills happen. And characters die individually as well. It happens. Sometimes it's the roll of the dice, just unlucky that day, but often it's because of poor choices. And that's one of the dangers of a sandbox game. For those of you who've never really thought past, sandbox games are awesome. New players who go off the rails, so to speak, and haven't learned what is and isn't dangerous to do with their characters. And so they take the little wheels off the bicycle too quick. Are most likely to get eaten by a dragon at first level or something, because they get in their head to go off and do something incredibly stupid. But I've had people who've played for a little bit also choose to do stuff stupid. Also, DMs, give up you saying the following: are you sure you want to do that? Players, they legitimately are trying to save your player characters' lives. Unfortunately, DMs, what I have noticed whenever that term gets used at a table, is a large number of players will think to themselves, I'm in elementary school. It doesn't matter how old they are. I just got double dog dared. We all got double dog dared. We can do this. And whatever it is, like writing a tactical nuclear bomb to ground zero from an airplane, they're going to do. And then when they die, they'll be like, what? I'm dead? Yeah, you got vaporized. Nobody survives ground zero, writing a bomb. Nobody does that. Yeah, you guys counted 1, 2, 3, remember? And you said you all did it together at the same time? And they're like, yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah, you're all dead. I don't even have to roll dice. Like, there are things people have done that's how dead they are. Like, there's no point. Just let me go order the pizza. Guys, get rolling some new characters, because, yeah. And that's the other thing. If it's a thing where you have to send, somebody really needs to do this thing, or the universe changes, your setting changes, go ahead and change the setting if they fail, or send another party in to try to save the day. But make sure they find, remains of the dead party that was there before. Ghosts of previous adventures should totally haunt dungeons and stuff. Totally. Even if they don't do anything, like the torchbearer, and you see an apparition with a lantern, it's there, and then it's gone. That should be totally happening in your dungeons. So, use your ghosts. Let players experience some awesomeness. Go watch some of those things I just mentioned. I didn't give you books. I didn't say comics. But all this stuff's in books and comics, if that's your preferred medium. But like I said, TV shows and movies, they're a goldmine. Google it. There are literally plot lines out there for your storytelling where it's all about the story. That nothing can happen until the main characters die. And then they get to come back in other bodies and stuff, and there's all kind of crazy wackiness. No one believes that they are who they are and that kind of stuff. But they have to have jobs. Go watch that stuff. Get a fresh perspective on the afterlife and how you can put it into a D&D game or any game that you're playing where you've got that going on. But don't do dream sequences. That just makes people mad. That just totally makes them mad. So there's some thoughts. Heck, even at the end of Flash Gordon, Ming the Merciless's ring. Someone picks it up and you hear Ming laughing. Like somehow Ming isn't dead and he's in that ring. Okay? So, and this stuff can be used towards your bad guys too. DMs, if you have a little creativity. But yes, check it out. Because in a fantasy role-playing game where we got super science, we've got magic, we've got psionics, we've got everything is from myth and legend to sci-fi happening, I say go for it. Let them get replicated by nanonites, little robots. But make it so that it makes sense for your game. Like Star Trek, how many times do main characters get killed and come back? Right? Run with it, but make it make sense and have fun with it. Have it have an effect. I prefer it to be like, they die and then they're in this other state of being. Absolutely. But you're playing it from a different angle. You're playing the game then from a different angle. From the angle of the monsters. Or having the NPC, have them come back as NPCs. That's the way I prefer to do it. But yeah, total party kill. Fast forward to 500 years and have them come back as skeleton men on a mission to save the world. Because they'll be showing up with their new characters, which you can totally have those new characters as well in the story. If you, in your adventure, if you do it right. So, have a great day, everybody. That is my thought for the day on death and dying and making it more interesting than it was before. Bye.